Welcome to the Happily Ever Laughter podcast.
A positive space where we try to find the humor in the craziness of life.
Because life is crazy.
That's for sure.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Dynae.
And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the Happily Ever Laughter podcast, everybody. I'm Matt.
And I'm Dynae.
We're trying something a little bit different today. We're in the studio. We're trying to not wear our headphones because now we've started video recording.
Yeah. So we'll see how
our
this
vanity
goes.
for our hair is going to see what happens, and if it works, and if we listen back to this and it's terrible, then we realized doesn't matter what you look like, you're doing a podcast.
That's true. So, yeah, we're just trying some new things, switching some stuff up, and seeing what's more comfortable, I guess.
That should probably be the slogan for a lot of podcasts, actually, though. Doesn't matter what you look like, you're doing a podcast.
It's true, honestly.
However,
that's the only reason, because we're putting this now on YouTube, that we're like, okay, now I actually have to feel like other people might see what I look like.
That's true. We used to just do them in our pajamas, or I wouldn't even wear a shirt.
You know, no, you didn't do that.
Why not?
Please.
This is for the people that are watching. Here's a little pale
pale
chest for you. Yeah, it is very pale.
Stop it. Oh, my gosh. This is for all the Patreon members.
For the Patreon members. This is for our OnlyFans. This actually goes well for the topic today, which I didn't even mean to do that, but I think is hilarious at the same time. So if you're joining us on YouTube, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're joining us in your car, also, thanks for hanging out with us. We are excited today. Well, I'm excited now. I wasn't originally, but today is our Bridgerton episode.
Okay, so we have to get into this because 90% of the time we're on the same page about the things that we like to watch, movies, books, that kind of stuff, right? And so what I think is sometimes fun is us showing the other person something that we've come across. We're like, hey, you might actually like this, even though at first you were like, I'm not watching that. You know, because I mentioned it and I was like, I started watching it because of the hype and everything like that.
Right.
And so he's never seen an episode at all. And then we were talking about it and he was like, well, I really want you to watch the Bridgerton series that I had no interest in watching, really, to begin with.
Well, the thing is, I think when we both come into the situation with suggestions for each other, it's because we know that the other person probably will like it.
Yeah.
So we should probably go ahead and listen to that person.
But there's always this little bit of pushback, and there has been on both of us, right? And so we kind of made this deal that was like, okay, well, if I watch Reacher with you, then you'll watch Bridgerton with me.
Right.
Because I think there are elements of both. And we were right. I enjoyed Reacher, even though it was ludicrous, a lot of it, and we could do a whole series on what I thought of those episodes as well. And we might go forward, because if there's new series coming out, like new seasons of these coming out, we might do some reactions and stuff of watching them, because they both in their own ways are very different, but also very melodramatic, really.
Very soap opera-esque.
Yeah,
even though one
weirdly
is like a soap opera for men and one's a soap opera for women, they still have some very similar elements that they share.
And that's what I thought was the most interesting part. But the whole reason really I got you on board was obviously that I watched Reacher, but we also went with the kids to see Wicked.
Yeah.
And you're like, who is this guy playing Fiyero? He's never seen him in anything. I was like, well, he's super famous from Bridgerton, so now that's an excuse for you to watch it.
Yeah, because if you've seen Wicked, obviously, and me being a theater person and an entertainer for a living,
he just has a stage
presence. There's
an
instant charm and magnet pull that he has in that movie that draws you in right off the bat. So you're kind of going, whoa!
And he didn't really have that big of a part in this
guy?
First movie, but the second half that comes out next year will have a much bigger part, nice. I believe. So, yeah. It's exciting when you come across people and you're like, oh, who is this person? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I've known about him for a while. So
that's true.
So anyway, that's what got it started. And you were like, okay, fine, I'll watch Bridgerton. So now I'm going to kind of get your thoughts on the whole thing from the guy's perspective, the husband's perspective, sitting here and watching it with me. Because obviously, y'all know it's a romantic series. There's some stuff in there that I'm sure you've all heard about. But at the same time, past all of that, there's actually some pretty funny storylines going on. So,
do I bring up the stuff that the kids make fun of me for all the time? And
oh, no.
Not in this episode? We'll
not.
Save that for later? Okay.
But Anyway, so I figured we'll just kind of run through the series because we did sit down and surprisingly, you got into it and we got through it like all of the seasons that are out so far, including the Queen Charlotte series, which was pretty funny too.
That's true.
So, and you were like, yeah, let's just keep watching them. So we'll tend to do this. We'll go through and we'll find a series and then we'll watch it all the way through before we switch to something else. So unless it's Supernatural, because there's so many seasons of that it's ridiculous.
You know what? This is our podcast and we're always honest. So I might as well just say it because I think that's hilarious anyway. And anyone listening might even understand at the same time too, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So Dynae and I watch shows all the time. Both of us appreciate the human body in all forms.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
We're not ashamed to admit when we were like, that's a good looking person.
Yeah. So if I'm watching a Hemsworth film and he takes his shirt off, it's not like I'm going to be like, gross. I'm going to be like, that dude put in some work and that's impressive.
Because we watch this stuff together and it's so funny to banter back and forth about it all. So
it's true.
Yeah. But anyway,
so
the kids make fun of him for it.
Right. We started watching Supernatural because the way I act in the show and have a kind of similar look sometimes, maybe not with all of this.
Well, you did cosplay as Dean Winchester.
I did cosplay as Dean Winchester.
One Halloween.
But that's because people kept saying, hey, you remind me of this Dean character from a TV show, Supernatural. And they were already 13 episodes or seasons in at that point. And I go, oh, I've never seen this. So I started watching. I was hooked. But obviously, Reacher and Supernatural have their own...
But you call it man candy.
I call it man candy.
And it could go both ways. But like there's this and we'll talk about it a little bit between the series. It's like, okay, we'll talk about the female gaze versus the male gaze. Reacher is very much male gaze, but it's very interesting at the same time because they do show a lot of his butt crack.
That's true. And a lot of him naked and whatnot.
But it's supposed to be like this manly man, like, oh, guys, this is what you could be, I think, is where they're going to from this whole thing.
It's funny for us to watch the series and then kind of go, man stuff, throw a little bit in for the ladies.
And then, like, some weird comedy. Like, we're starting to talk about Reacher more. We'll do that in a different episode.
Anyway, so the whole reasoning this came up is because of watching Supernatural, any of the Marvel guys or any of that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. I always jokingly talk about how attractive I think male people are.
Yeah.
Male people?
Men.
The men form.
Men folk,
so,
if you will.
our oldest child is actually non-binary, and so all of our kids now say, Dad, you might be bi, because I talk about how attractive I think certain men are all the time. And whenever we left Wicked... I had never seen Jonathan Bailey before.
And that's what stood out to you.
But that's what stood out. And I told Dynae, I go, you know what? I might be bi after watching that because Jonathan Bailey, well played, my friend.
Yeah. So that's the funny part. So yeah, it's this funny banter we have back and forth now when we watch these different series. So anyway, but going back to this episode was
Is it more awkward that I revealed that now, or is it?
Well, I mean, if they didn't know by now.
I guess we'll find out when we get into TV land.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's like on Friends. You know, like, I work on Disney and we do a lot of stuff. I have a huge gay fan base, so that's for you guys.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
But let's get back into...
for the people watching on YouTube.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway.
I forgot that people are just listening to this and I'm making weird faces. If you want to see what I look like, just go to our YouTube channel and you can see me make weird faces. Yeah.
And you can understand where I'm coming from a lot of times.
That's true.
Anyway. So yes, we're going into this, like, going to talk about what you thought of the Bridgerton series so far.
Okay.
And yeah, just your takeaways a little bit from your perspective.
So I don't know any of these questions. Dynae has them all written down over on the side, and she's just basically going to be finding my perspective of what I thought of Bridgerton through this situation.
So I didn't write this one down, but just off the top of my head now, since we got into how I got you to watch it,
okay,
like, what were your initial, like, preconceived notions going into this?
Well, before we do get that far, we might talk about spoilers.
Yeah.
So
obviously,
if you haven't seen those and you don't want anything spoiled, I'll try to figure out sections of where we can not have spoilers,
or just skip this episode,
or
if you really don't want to be spoiled
until you watch it. Yeah, I feel really bad, but if you know Bridgerton, stay with us.
You'll enjoy.
I don't know what I'm going to end up saying, so we'll just find out from here. Okay, question.
So yes, what was your, like, going into it? I guess what was your, like, I don't want to watch this. Why? What was that reasoning?
Oddly enough, I think the main thing for me is I have an issue with period pieces.
But why? That's what I still don't understand. Because that was the big catch. Like, I couldn't get him to watch it for the longest time because of that.
I don't know. I think it might be with the way my brain works with my ADHD. I don't have a connection or like a...
You can't relate. You did say that.
I can't relate, yeah.
You did say that at one point because it's like the Regency period and everybody's super rich and then that's everybody else, right? And that the characters that you follow are all the like noble rich people and like they don't really do anything but meddle in each other's love lives.
That's the thing that I think I find the hardest to relate with. It's like when people talk about DC versus Marvel and sometimes the DC characters are so overpowered that they don't quite have their humanity.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's harder to relate to somebody like Superman who has ultimate power or stuff like that.
So these are like Superman, super rich people, so you can't relate.
So I think it's to the point of kind of going, for me, growing up the way I did and the way we spend money and how things work, all of this is just so frivolous to the point of where I'm like, I don't care about you or your life at this point because you're so...
And it's like, it's in the past and you don't care about the past.
That's true.
Sometimes. To a point, I was like, well, that's gone. I don't need to care about that anymore.
I'm glad that we finally got diagnosed with ADHD because now I've realized so many things from the past because our oldest was diagnosed and now I'm going, oh, this makes sense of why all of things happen. But people always ask me, hey, do you remember in high school when this happened? Or do you remember? And I'm like, dude, I don't remember nothing.
I tell your family, like when we have family events and they don't put me on the text thread to know things, I'm like, guys, we're not going to show up if you don't tell me because he won't remember at all. So it's one of those things.
I jokingly compare it to that part in, if you guys have seen Inside Out, and there's the part where they're going through the memories in the brain and the guys have the vacuum and they're like, we don't need these presidents' names anymore. And they're just like taking memories that are wasting space.
That's you.
That is everything in the past for me. Like I have so much trouble
unless it's
remembering
like
anything.
A current thing that or person that you're like connecting with or something like that. You're just like, that's gone.
Yes, or a hyperfixation that I have. So if it's movie quotes or song lyrics or
It's
things
so
that are
weird.
very important to me, like I can remember the most obscure line from a movie and the cadence in which the way the guy said it. But they're like, hey, do you remember your freshman biology teacher? I'd be like,
nope.
I could not tell you at all. And then you tell me the name and I'm like, I don't even remember that name. So
it's true.
It's pretty sad.
It's pretty funny. But anyway, so once we got past that part, when did you realize you were kind of hooked on the show?
It took me a little bit. I think oddly enough, season 1 is my least favorite.
Yeah, so far
of any of the Bridgerton that we watched.
Okay, and there are 4 seasons out. Technically 4.
There's 3 Bridgertons and there's the Queen Charlotte.
Yeah, which is kind of in the middle there
Yeah.
if you're watching them chronologically of knowing what's going on. So,
and I think that's the other tough part is it took me a little bit to get into the series because of all of the things that I just stated. It's problems of the uber rich, which to me I don't really care.
and the flowery language.
Kind of similar to right now.
Yeah.
Like problems of the big dogs of Musk or all of these people. And I'm like, I don't give a crap.
Can't relate
because
to you
I
at all.
cannot relate to you at all. You are so wealthy that you could do so much good in the world, but you don't.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot for me that I'm kind of going, I just can't wrap my brain around how this works. So the first season is a lot.
Was just you getting acclimated to the whole like universe, I guess, of, if you will.
The Bridgerton CU, the
Yeah.
BCU.
Yeah. And just like, how does this work? How are these people connected?
Yeah.
And it is, because you just kind of get dropped in to all of these characters and you got to learn who they all are and how they're connected.
The first season is so overly dramatic. Like everything is an emergency happening or something. So
Or her honor is ruined, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
some of those things are crazy. And maybe that's another reason I can't relate either. Because there's, if a man and a woman are in a garden together, just talking, doing nothing,
no.
instantaneously they're like, the woman can never be alone with a man. Now you must marry. That's what you get.
It's wild that these were actual rules at one point in
Yeah.
society too, which is funny too. it's kind of like got to wrap your brain around some of the rules that are established in that first season too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think what really got me into it, obviously, was Jonathan Bailey. No,
why though? You have to tell everybody why.
I love it because my favorite characters
are kind of the side characters that.
Well, my favorite characters, man, can I not say that? I'm just trying to get it out. My favorite characters in TV shows are the ones that kind of steal the scene because they're going over the top a little too much, but yet it's almost perfect at the same time. Mm-hmm. So like an example of this, one thing that Dynae and I really love, if anybody has watched the TV series Ghosts.
Yes.
And we love the UK version because the older British lady that is the ghost in the house.
She's so prim and proper.
She is like this too. She's a very period piece person, but everything is pearl clutching for her.
Yeah.
Oh my.
And her facial expressions the whole time. So he likes people with very animated facial expressions.
I do.
And
do you want to do the face? Can you do it? This is one of my favorite things. I love.
Like, how does she do it? It's kind of like she's so like dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he makes fun of me for doing that all the time.
I love it. I think it's hilarious. So I love in movies and stuff where things are just so unnecessary. One thing that always pops into my brain too, I know I have taken my medication today, whether you think that I'm going off track a lot. I am going off track a lot. In the movie Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
I love that movie because it's so ludicrous as well. But there's this one scene where they're just walking across this rock planet, and all of the crew are just casually walking, and then Tim Allen out of nowhere dive rolls from behind a rock and then hides behind another
rock. And there's nothing around them.
And nothing is around, and
no
everyone else is just casually walking.
Yeah.
So things like that I love.
Okay.
Probably also growing up on Jim Carrey and him being my favorite actor growing
physical
up.
Physical
comedy and the facial expressions and the over the top stuff have always held
that's what you do.
That is what I do professionally for a living now, is make faces like that and do comedy. So maybe that's another reason I like it so much, because
I think you like these characters because you can see yourself in them too.
Right.
Like all the ones that you talk about that you like.
That's
I
true.
think from your perspective, that's kind of where it comes from, is just like, oh, I could see myself playing this character.
Well, and the reason, bringing it all back to where we started with Jonathan Bailey in this series, is because he is so unsubtle with every one of his facial expressions that he cannot even hide what he's thinking.
He's the David Rose of Bridgerton. He cannot his face tells all.
I think with me and my ADHD and all of that stuff too, I am that person.
You're that way, yeah.
I am not good at hiding on my face. If somebody tells me something and I'm like, what the hell? My face is going to say, what the hell? It's hard for me to really... Sometimes I have to go into acting mode just talking to other people, because if somebody says something that really jolts me, it takes all fiber of my being to just be like, really? And keep a casual face and be like, did they notice that I winced or that I made a weird...
This is probably growing up masking your whole life too. It's just like practicing the and now that you're unmasking, you're very much like, I don't know what my face looks like, and I don't really care anymore.
I think so. And I think that comes with age, too. That's like the old man on the front porch.
You do get to a certain point, and you're just like, I don't care what people think of this anymore.
Yeah,
so.
I'm definitively turning into that guy.
Uh-oh.
Get off my lawn!
Crotchety old man.
Yep.
Anyway, so my next question was, who was your favorite character of the series so far? And so did that answer that Antony?
Well, it depends on which series, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously, Queen Charlotte, Antony is not in it.
No, not. I don't think so at all.
Any flashbacks or any of that type of stuff?
So
Flash forwards? It would be in that one?
Yeah, that one's weird if you haven't seen it, because it's a prequel, but then it flashes into the present day of the series.
I like Antony in the first season because he's just constantly in the
side
back
character,
just
making the facial expressions,
staring at you from across the room and not even hiding it.
Yeah.
So for the visual audience, I'm going to get up and do that, but you can keep talking for a second. So I'm going to stand behind you.
This is his impression of Anthony Bridgerton.
Okay, so I'm in the back.
Uh-huh. What's going on over there? I'm looking at you in the monitor.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
I should probably do it
he's
from
not
here.
subtle at all.
And that would be a better one because I was out of focus. But yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, that's been your favorite part.
My Anthony Bridgerton
when
impersonation.
He's the side character. So yeah. But then, okay. Well, then let's go by first season, second season. What'd you think of second
Because I know,
season?
And I think the other reason that I probably didn't want to watch it to begin with was just the hype.
Yeah, you have an issue with that. We didn't watch some of the series that had all of that kind of like, we're not part of the zeitgeist a lot, you know, of when certain things come out.
I like that I taught you that word many years
it,
ago
yeah.
and that you use it all the time. So
it's true, though. Yeah. We really don't. There's a lot of things like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones we didn't watch until probably 5 to 8 years after it was over.
And we just
somehow didn't know any of it. So once we got to the Red Wedding or some of those things,
we didn't know what was happening.
What?
So
this is cool. Crazy.
But yeah, so this is the first series in a while that I had been keeping up with as it was going.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you didn't.
I would periodically come in at night when you were watching sometimes, and I remember now when we were going through oh, I've seen this ballroom clip before.
You kept saying that. Of course, there's how many ballroom clips, so you could have just melded them all together.
It's either that or I don't know what's happening with me as well, but for some reason there's a lot of times where I feel like, boy, this is going to sound really crazy.
Oh, no. I have no idea what's going to happen here.
Like, since we've deconstructed religiously and I've started becoming more open to a lot of other things now that I never really thought possible
or had an
interest in. So like Supernatural, watching Supernatural now and learning about supernatural creatures or stuff like that. I'm super fascinated with that now. That part of the occult or whatever that would be.
The macabre. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
I brain farted on what I was talking
you
about.
were talking about Bridgerton, and then
I was talking about Bridgerton, Supernatural. Yeah. Welcome to Dynae's world every day.
It's true. It is true.
Anyway, so supernatural stuff, like in my white noise, we sleep with white noise every night. Sometimes I can hear people talking, or I can hear like old-timey music playing in the white noise.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I have some sort of connection with possibly outside the veil or whatever you would want to call that.
Exists, you know, that kind of stuff.
But sometimes there are times too where we watch things and I will see them and kind of go, have we not seen this before?
Oh, that's bringing it back for full circle. I was like, where are you going with this?
This is where I'm going with it, yes.
Because there were several times throughout the series, I'm pretty sure you did not watch any of it with me.
But there's always...
Like, I've seen those before.
I, for some reason, now believe that there is like a multiversal thing
and there's
happening.
Been so much stuff with multiverse stuff lately, and you're just like, this makes sense.
And maybe that's it, and maybe my brain is just broken and that's how it works. But for some reason, I feel like at times I'm connected to those other multiverses that you and I are in, and we have watched these in those other multiverses. Gotcha. So I'm remembering a memory from one of my other entities.
Oh, okay.
From another timeline.
Gotcha. If that makes any sense to anybody else out there.
We are not on drugs right now, but it would seem like we are the way I'm talking, but we are not. I promise.
Anyway, well, other than ADHD drugs.
That's true. I am on some Adderall, but that's all I need.
But yeah, so that brings it full circle because there were full times because you were like, I've seen this before. I'm like, pretty sure you haven't, but you know, it does kind of all meld together after a while.
That is true.
After so many seasons of things and same characters and stuff like that, it does. Because that's how I feel about Supernatural. It's like, wait, didn't we already see this episode with this demon? And it's like, oh, probably. Yeah, there's been how many seasons?
That's true. So, well, Supernatural, there's 15 seasons. There's 30 episodes per season. They're all 45 minutes to an hour long. Yeah. So I cannot imagine. There's a lot
of content there. And then like with Bridgerton, it's like there's probably 5 balls per episode or something. So it's like, how do you keep it all straight? Anyway.
Balls.
Dancing
balls. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
That was the other reason.
This is where we're at today.
Yeah. Speaking of balls, that was the other reason that I was probably at first reluctant to watch.
Because you don't like dances.
But I love balls. No. Let me finish. Everyone's going to be like, they talked about balls for way too long.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Is like 50 Shades. I knew that was made for a specific audience, and I knew what it was, and I didn't really care to watch.
Yeah.
I figured Bridgerton was a similar thing because people talked about, oh, there's so many sex scenes, and there's all these things. There's really not as many
as you would think,
as
with
I
the
thought
way
there were
everybody
going to
talks
be.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah. There are some for sure, but yeah, it wasn't as like all through the entire thing as you thought. Especially that first season was a bit, but then you got into the other ones and it got more into the story more than anything else, I feel like.
Right.
So
my favorite part of the first season was making fun of some of those things.
Of how ludicrous
ludicrous it was going to be, of kind of like, but it is true, like women never telling women what sex is going to be. They're like, I don't even know what that means.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
How?
Like
how
the one daughter they were talking to at one point, and they're like, when he puts it, and then the daughter's like,
oh, that's the,
where does he put it?
That's like
later.
The last season.
No,
yeah,
I know.
That we were watching.
But yeah. that was that thing. Or
well, and they purposely make it funny because it is so ludicrous about some of it.
Well, the things that I find funny are like right before a sex scene, you know, when the guy's talking to her and then she's all nervous.
Dramatic.
Yeah, and then he's like, this might hurt a little bit. And then you're like, oh my gosh. So I can't help
That's been the fun part for us watching it, just making fun of some of that stuff. So
I feel bad, but there are moments of genuine, supposed to be sexy or supposed to be romantic, and I just die laughing, and I have to pause it and go, is that really what just happened in that scene?
Yeah, it's so fun. And that's the melodrama and the soap opera aspect of it, I think, is the funny part.
So maybe that's why I ended up falling in love with Bridgerton so much, because of like what I said before. One of my favorite things is just the ludicrous.
Over the top, yeah.
And Bridgerton is way over the top. Yeah, everything.
So, okay, so what surprised you the most about the series then?
I think season 1 went pretty much how I thought it would go, the way everyone described everything, with the drama and the sex and the saucy looks and
the flowery language.
And all of the above. And then it's
and the fact that nobody ever talks to anybody about anything. And so there's always the misunderstandings. Yeah, that was frustrating.
Every show that we watch, when people don't communicate, that is our biggest pet peeve. Mm-hmm. One show that we absolutely loved when it was on and airing and on TV and we were watching it was Lost.
But there was a reason they were all lost.
But there was so many problems that could have been solved if one character just said, hey, this is happening to me. Is this happening to you? And they go, it is. Ta-da! But instead, it took 3 episodes to go, is that a smoke monster? Where's the dog? Polar bear.
Yeah.
Never speak of it again.
We saw a clip. This is totally off tangent. We saw a clip of Lost, and they were talking about the smoke monster thing, and then they were all just sitting around the fire, and then there was this huge noise behind them and everything, and the little kid said, is that the dog? It's like, obviously not the dog.
Well, he yelled the dog's name, and we're like, did he just yell the dog's name? And it sounded like an avalanche crashing.
It's like, there's a monster out there. It is not your golden retriever.
Maybe.
Or Labrador or whatever it was.
It was one of those two.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a weird tangent. But yeah. So most surprising, like, what did you come out of the series not realizing?
So like I said before, the first season I think is my least favorite because of all the things I stated before.
It was more stereotypical in your mind.
It's stereotypical. It's very pompous. It's very, we're uber rich and we're going to show everybody. And that's the whole point of the show, is to show how much more proper and rich and
ludicrous
fancy
it all is.
you are than the other person. So once we started into season 2, I enjoyed it even more thoroughly, because then it showed the actual family dynamic of the Bridgerton family and how much you could genuinely tell that they cared about each other, or
how they got along together.
The brothers would make fun of each other, and it just had a lighter,
lighter feel to it.
Yeah,
really.
a lighter feel that I could actually relate to.
And then that's what I was saying.
So I think they
did
happened.
lend into the humor more in the later seasons, for sure.
So the second season became less sex, more funny, and more positivity.
And also more looks by Anthony not being able to control his facial expressions.
That's true.
So we were making fun of the whole part, because with that season, it's like him and his soon-to-be wife, obviously, but they're just going at it this whole time and kind of like butting heads the entire season.
Yeah.
And it's like, then when they figure out, oh, we do love each other, it's hilarious when they're trying to downplay it. I'm like, guys, don't look at each other. You can't let everybody know that you're into each other. But it's so not possible with Anthony.
For sure.
Because he just like cannot hide his facial expression at all.
That's my new thing that I've told Dynae is I want to try to do an Anthony Bridgerton at some point if we're ever at a family function.
He's just going to go around
and
the
I'm
corner
just like
and look
across
at me
the
like
room
that.
and I just stand in the corner and look at her.
Like, what's happening over there? Yeah. Which is funny.
I think that'd be
and I do like
super fun.
that they've caught on to that, obviously, as a character thing of his. And throughout all of the seasons he's in, it's like that. So.
Yeah, there was a specific callback in season 3 where they
Yeah.
made him make an Anthony stare.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's
hilarious
funny. That it's not only been talked about or made fun of or even praised.
We know that's a character trait of this character now.
That they now just try to threw it in there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, I like season 2 more for that because of it is more based around the family and
their dynamic.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then let's see. So
then are we just still going?
Go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
No, you were
If you
just
had
asking me
another thought.
every favorite character of every season.
You can if you want to. So that was second season. So who was your favorite character out of that season?
It's probably still Anthony again, but you got to see
the reasoning behind his character more.
Oh man, and that was rough too.
Yeah, that's the thing that surprised me about it was more of the like, okay, now we're gonna like trauma dump a little bit on these characters and learn why they are the way that they are. So some of that I wasn't expecting.
They're still pompous and rich and unrelatable, but at the same time, getting to see some of that humanity
be more relatable
helped bring it all down a little bit.
Yeah. So some of the hard stuff that they've faced as a family and whatnot. So I think that was appreciated in season 2 for me as well.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the funny part going from season 1 to season 2. A lot of people were complaining that there wasn't as much sex scenes, which I think is hilarious all on its own. But for us, it made it better because you're diving into the characters more and their development rather than just the smut. I think
I even literally said that at some point in season 2, like a couple episodes in.
It's like there's not as much in this one.
I already like this one more because there is less sex and it's just a funnier, more heartwarming show at this point.
Yeah, which is funny.
So I like to see it because, Anthony was so dramatic and sad and everything was wrong.
Mm-hmm. He was so serious about everything.
At the beginning. So I think I thoroughly enjoyed, and maybe that was me when we watched Wicked. And kind of getting to see the charisma and the stuff that he could bring from that, and then oh, okay, now he gets to be that a little bit more of this character, to show that he is a really good guy, and most of the things in his life that happened are because he just got instantly
grew up real quick,
instantly catapulted into the man of the house as a teen, and then what comes from all of that, which is I can't even fathom either. So
it's crazy. So, okay.
Then we got, what's it, Queen Charlotte next?
Technically, if you're going in order, of how they were released.
I liked Queen Charlotte a lot because you got to comprehend the queen more, where in the beginning, similarly, she was very one-dimensional.
You're just like, man, she's rough.
Yeah, she's just a queen. Nothing makes her happy. She's just, everything is whatever, do what I say. I mean, which you would assume a queen would do. But I think I thoroughly enjoyed that one because then you got to see, how she became where she is at today and that she really isn't. She's just putting on that.
It's the armor. It's also her just like her character is very blunt. Like she feels no reason to hide how she feels about things.
Right.
I guess. And she also kind of, going back in time, she kind of bucked the proper quote unquote way to do things as well in her youth. So
that's true.
She was kind of a trailblazer, I guess, in the show. And you don't see that until this season, really, how she kind of like went against, her time society as well.
Yeah.
And challenged it. So I think that was interesting to see from that perspective as well.
I thoroughly enjoyed that spinoff. Like those 6 episodes were really great. Am a big fan.
You did say several times here and there, I would hear you say, well, they acted the crap out of that scene.
Well, I was impressed because, like we were saying before with the Jonathan Bailey stuff or with the Antony, same thing with King George, or even the girl that played young Charlotte. There were so many scenes or emotional moments where
you really felt that emotion.
Especially with George, because he, in history, is known as
the quote Mad King.
Mad King, because, but in this one, he kind of
had... obviously historical fiction based on real people, but a lot of, it's very dramatized of nobody really knows what he was going through or what was happening. Obviously, in history, I think they do talk about him having some sort of dementia-like mental health issue. But obviously, it was 1700s. Nobody knew anything about psychology or anything back then.
For sure.
I can only imagine how crazy it actually was.
But there were a couple scenes that really stood out to me, especially with that guy that played George. I wish I wrote down what his name was. Yeah, I didn't write his
name down. But yeah, he...
But there were a couple scenes where, because of his mental dementia or any of the situations, you could see like the fear on his face and also the surprise and also the love, but then also like you could see him.
His emotional acting was really, really good. Yeah, just the facial expressions, like you're saying, like you really did feel the emotion that he was feeling. So, especially during the like panic attack type moments, I feel like if anybody's had a panic attack, it's like, he nailed that. He's probably had a real panic attack at some point in his life. So,
well, and that might be an interesting thing too, because our oldest is on the spectrum and has been through phases of that. Like there were a couple years where panic attacks were really big, and you and I had to deal with it and trying to be like, let's get you out from under the table, and how do you calm down and calm your breathing and do all that stuff. So that season was very relatable because we had gone through something with our own child with that. I mean, not the same issue, but having similar things happen. And I thought that the king was probably, you know what? Actually, I think the butler might have been my favorite.
Oh,
character.
In that season?
Yeah.
The little spin-off story about him. Yeah.
What was his name?
Brain fart.
Kingsley? Hensley?
Brimsley.
Brimsley. I was close.
Brimsley. Yeah. Yes. I did really enjoy their little side.
Story. The two.
Love story. Yeah. That was a nice added touch, I feel.
Yeah. But yeah, I think King George might have been overall my favorite in it just because of all the stuff he was going through, and he did a really good job emotionally. I do find it fun or funny that he is this very sexy, enticing lead, just like Jonathan Bailey is, and they're both gay. But yet they're both like somehow became the lead, like every man that women want.
Well, that's because going back to, I feel like there's that female gaze versus male gaze thing. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe gay guys understand the female gaze a little better anyway. So it could be that a little bit.
Is that why you like me? Because I have a slight femininity?
No, you're just unabashedly you and don't care about that stuff.
I think that's more it. So, At this point, I'm kind of like,
you'll call it out when you see it. Yeah. That's kind of where you're at. So,
because it was funny, we were having a conversation with another couple at one point, and totally random that this comes up too, though. But they kind of were talking about the point where Trump wouldn't stop talking about Arnold Palmer's dong.
Oh, no.
And so he was talking about it, and then he was like, oh, wait, you're not supposed to talk to another man about a penis and all these things. And so he was saying that to his wife. We were at a big meeting.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if you heard all this.
I remember. I heard just bits and pieces of the conversation.
But like, and then he looked over at me and he's like, this guy gets it. Like, you're not just supposed to talk about other man's junk. And then in my brain, I'm looking at Dynae going, if it was on camera, we'd probably both be like,
let's analyze this.
Yeah, that's quite a six-pack that guy's rocking right there. I don't think he even realized.
No. You're like, my brain works different than your brain.
Yeah. I have an appreciation for all.
There you go.
Because I know how hard it is being an athlete and growing up and doing all that stuff, too, to get to that shape.
Yeah.
That I think it's also...
You appreciate the work that it took to get there.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And the physicality of it. Anyway. But That was a weird tangent. Anyway.
I think also not wearing our headphones makes it more chaotic as well, because then you can just like, I can see the camera right here of us recording, and I can see that camera and you, and then hear all the sounds. So maybe after this Bridgerton episode, we'll go back to wearing headphones.
You're not sure if you like it yet.
But we'll see what happens when we actually listen back to it and go from there.
And see how it sounds, yeah.
So then now we're on to season 3.
Yes. Yeah, this is the Colin and Penelope episodes. Oh, no.
Which my first thought was Violet's new love attraction.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a new love interest for the mom of the Bridgerton family in that season.
Who's just, it's just this massive black dude that's just like...
It's very attractive,
so
older
chiseled.
Man.
I think I called him Mr. Girth
Oh, no.
a couple times. Because you can just tell underneath his stuff.
Because you did say that. He was like, his arms are huge in that jacket.
Sometimes you can't tell when people are wearing clothes or like shirts, like how big somebody is. I remember one time I was on tour... and Gareth and I went to a bar, and there was this guy we were talking to. He was super nice, like the bartender. And so we did all this stuff. And then eventually he took off his hoodie, and he seemed about my size. Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize how big the hoodie was. And he took it off, and he was like a bodybuilder underneath. You're going, holy crap, where are you hiding those guns?
Under your huge hoodie.
But it's similar to that guy, but you could tell right off the bat, you're going, this dude.
You did like the fashion overall. Honestly,
that might be the thing.
I did like that too, and I like the whole aesthetic of it, like the colorings and how they did the costuming and everything like that. I think it was really interesting.
That was one thing I think that might have surprised me the most, is it got to the point where I started really noticing fabric patterns and clothing
like
they were wearing, and I'm
like, you were like, damn, I look good in that.
Whoever this costume designer is did a great job for everybody, like coloring of skin and all of the above.
I like how it was still like historically the Regency period, but everything was kind of modernized at the same time. That goes along with the music too. Like I've even downloaded a lot of the music because it's all modern music, but they do it with like string quartets and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that part of it as well.
I keep a note of just weird things that we say, and I think I said something about costuming at one point, so I'm trying to look it up.
See if you can find it.
To see what it was. Oh, no. So we're going to have to put an expletive warning on our thing just because of what I have written down. But this is what I said while watching Bridgerton.
Okay.
I go, he's a crotchety old fuck, but his suit is dope. So.
Oh, which one was that? Who was that?
Also, I wrote down a phrase that because I used to, or as we watched, I made fun of the language. Flowery.
The flowery
so I have
language.
another one that says, how round is thine sausage?
Oh, no. It was like that. There was a lot of that. Just kind of the little old stereotypical, what is it? The romance novel kind of language in it, which is, because they're based on a series of books. I don't know if you realize that or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is that very stereotypical flowery language.
Some of my favorite ones are where you would catch it and then out of nowhere it would be like a modern phrase.
Yeah.
Or like a talk to the hand or something like that.
But
the way they had it.
Way. Yeah. That was funny. So yeah, third season, favorite characters in that one?
In the third season, I think the third season is the most ridiculous because you get into the brother. Which I'm brain farting. Colin?
Yes.
And he becomes the lead, like, sexy man in this one.
Yeah.
Which
and
he hadn't been in the other ones.
From, like, Babyface, too. And they make fun of it in the show, too.
Yeah, so they instantaneously, the show starts, and he's just like this Van Helsing,
yeah, because he
Indiana
goes off
Jones.
on, like a study abroad type or, like, a trip of his own. And then when he comes back a few months later, he's this, like, sexy grown-up
Just comes back 5 o'clock shadow. He's got, like, the deep V, so all his chest hair is popping.
Yeah. But that's the point of it. They call it all out in the season, too, which is pretty funny. So the pure ludicrousness of the way that season starts, I think I enjoy as well. Just because it was over the top.
We laughed at it, and I paused it a bunch and then kept saying, I can't believe this is happening, but... At the same time, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it didn't hinder me Like
enjoying
I think that's what
watching
endeared it to me more is the fact that it almost like a Bollywood film.
It plays into it.
Goes so over the top with like the action scenes. They're catching somebody in slow motion doing it's like something heroic.
Yeah.
That's like what is happening in Bridgerton, but for the female gaze.
Yeah. We haven't even really touched on it, but at what point did you realize who Lady Whistledown was? Because you do this every time we watch anything. You just kept guessing. And it was so funny to me because I'm like, watching it before you. I knew everything that was going to happen. And all of your guesses were like, yeah, you went just two steps too far. It's just that kind of thing.
That's true. I hadn't retrained my brain yet to realize what we were watching.
The universe that you're in.
So at first, knowing that you had seen it, part of the fun of the game for me was to go, I'm going to see if I can guess where these are connecting and what's going to happen in the future because of, Anthony just gave this look to this person, so that means that this is going to happen. So some of those are the fun parts for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there were several times where you're just like throwing out these guesses. But you went too dark, man.
Yeah, there were
Remember
so many
what
times.
Show you're watching.
There were too many times where I'd go, you know what? I bet she leaves him at the altar, and then he gets upset, and then he goes back, and then he hangs himself in his room.
So
and
bad.
then Danae's always like, too far.
Yeah. So that was the fun part watching with you.
And then I'd always have to go, oh, wait, this is for the female gaze, so everything's actually going to work out great. This wedding's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, we want
and then
the
at
happily
the end,
ever after.
they're going to find out that they're pregnant, and they're having the next king or
whatever it is. Yeah. So anyway. So I guess going back through all of them, which storyline has been your favorite so far? You could go with like main storyline or just the season in general, or like the side storylines that came out through all of it.
I'm not sure. It's kind of one of those, there's so many now. And we watched them all so quickly. I mean,
we did.
It was only like 2 weeks, and we just watched them all like 3 every night.
I think that's what happens when the seasons come out, though, because they come out all together.
Yeah.
Well, this last season kind of made everybody mad because it didn't come out all at once. They only released like the first 3 or 4 episodes. And then it was like a big cliffhanger. And then they waited like a month for the rest of them to come out. So, which is probably smart on their part to like split it up so you get more viewership that way, I guess. But
I think there are maybe not storylines as much as moments that really stand out.
Okay.
I'll try to be vague so they're not super spoilery. Obviously, one that I made fun of right at the beginning, but then it instantly turned and I wasn't ready for was Anthony as dad. Out in the garden.
When it showed what happened.
Yeah, because I was like, "What is this gonna happen?" And then I was like, "No way!" And then
it was pretty traumatic.
And then I was like, "Holy crap!" That was like
that would be intense. I get it.
Yeah, I went from semi-mocking the situation, which should never be a thing because I have family that are allergic to all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But then seeing it happen in real time, you're like, holy
then
shit,
you got to think to yourself as like, this is before modern medicine, so there literally was nothing they could do.
Yeah. But the way that they filmed and handled it and captured the emotion, like I was very impressed with a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
The end of Queen Charlotte with her and the king
under the bed
was a excellent way to end something.
Yeah.
Very notebooky.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I can get that.
Are you getting a little choked up me talking about it?
Because that was the most emotional one for me. I really did. And most of the people that I talked to, that ends up being their favorite season of everything that's come out so far.
Right.
Because I feel like they did do a really good job of emotionally connecting those characters quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar thing to what you said, the two right hands of the king and the queen, they're kind of behind the scenes relationship.
Yeah.
That was my big fear the whole time, was kind of going, oh no, something's going to happen to one of them, the blonde,
yeah,
or whatever. Because I was like, at first I couldn't tell what they were to each other, outside of just being like, oh, maybe we're just a fling. But then the more you realize that they super cared and they were, and what they had to go through and be like, you are my person, but there are things I cannot tell you, or I could probably get beheaded, or stuff like that.
Thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember we're kind of around that same time period, right? Nobody got beheaded so far. So
That was my thought that something might happen, but then the more we watched it, like I said, I had to realize, okay, this is not a show that somebody's going to a guillotine
yeah.
moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not a lot of female gaze-esque episodes or shows kind of go into the death aspect a lot.
This is the one that they want to see the balls.
Dances, you mean?
Nope, the balls. Yes, the dances.
Okay.
You just turned 44. I'm about to turn 43, but it's still hilarious
funny.
every time. So let us know in the comments or come find us if you're also
let us
laughing
know.
at balls
Oh my
in your
gosh.
car while you're driving right now. But yes, so having the dance scenes or the choreograph or the elaborate costuming or the flowers or
I think
the
at
sets.
one point we were like, this is what people did for entertainment back then. Like, you know, it was just interesting thought process there.
And it did kind of change my mind of going, well, if they are super rich and they're not allowed to do any of these other things. I mean, King George was the only one I ever saw that kind of went and did gardening or
He did his
anything
own
that
thing,
was his
yeah.
own.
Well, because that's not proper either. He wasn't
Right.
supposed to do that, but
But outside of that, all you ever saw them do was either play the piano or play chess, or they all had to just learn these dances because then you go to a dance and you do that
you
dance.
have to know these dances.
And
It's
that was
important
your job in life, was just to
to dance with each other
dance and be proper.
and marry and have kids. That's it.
Hence
Yeah.
my being able to unrelate to all of
Yeah,
this.
true. So,
Yep.
well, getting back to, we didn't answer,
Oh,
like,
sorry.
Whistledown. You
Yes.
were guessing a lot of who is who.
I was guessing a lot. I never really drew the connections, I don't think, and I probably should have.
Uh-huh.
And I think most people
I think they did
realize,
a good job, honestly. They did a good job kind of not giving it away
Yeah.
to people too.
or they did a good job of also kind of going,
Or
my queen,
directing
have you
your
ever thought
attention
that it
elsewhere.
might be a male? And then you go, oh, it might be a guy
Well, for
doing
the
this
longest time, I
instead of
think
Lady Whistledown. It could have been.
most people assumed it was Lady Danbury, I think.
That was
a
my
lot of
assumption
times.
for a long time too, just
Yeah.
the way she was.
Yeah.
Also enjoy her because her facial expressions
Yeah.
are
Don't hide anything either.
way too. Every time she talks, she's like,
Or also just the she'll just the side eye.
Huh.
She has a lot of side eyes. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that was fun because that was in Queen Charlotte. You go back. Sorry, I almost dropped my
you
coffee.
almost spilled your coffee.
Goes back to see their relationship too, and it makes you understand stuff a
Yeah.
little bit better of their dynamic now, because they're like, how is this lady getting away with talking to the queen this way, that kind of stuff. And
For
then,
sure.
and then you go back and understand that whole relationship. So yeah, so it turns out to be Penelope is Lady Whistledown. That's a huge spoiler, obviously, if anybody's not seen the series.
And we've gotten, we're 52 minutes
So
in.
if you didn't catch it by now. But anyway, so
I like that we've had other podcasts recently where we have entire sheets of information that we're like, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And today we
I had
go,
like 5
hey, let's just
questions.
wing it on Bridgerton. And we're like, we're almost at an hour. This is crazy.
This probably shows you that we like to talk about stuff that we've watched.
For
anyway,
sure.
So yeah. So I think I started to understand it pretty quick. I mean, I catch on to stuff like that pretty quick a lot of times. Was that a surprise to you when it was finally revealed, or were you like, they alluded to it enough that
No,
makes
because
sense?
I thought it could have also been Eloise at a point. Like it could have been any of the kids that, and even several of the Bridgerton kids had that same mentality of, we are proper and we are a proper big family within this community, but we don't want that.
Yeah,
that
we struggle
to be the thing.
to follow the rules sometimes.
Yeah, so you had Eloise who was like, no, I want to read and I want to be smart and I want to have a smart husband. And then you had another brother that's like, oh, no, I want to be an artist and I want to be a painter. And they didn't care about the marriage and the kids and all of that stuff, which is what the show is. And even back then, they're just driving down your throat all
That's
the time.
what you do. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And I do like how they wrapped that up, though. I'm curious how the next seasons will go. Because they left it with Penelope, revealing to the queen and all of that kind of stuff.
Penelope Whistledown.
No. Bridgerton now. They got married.
Oh, Penelope Bridgerton.
Anyway, so I do like how they wrapped that up the last season, though.
I accidentally went into Alan Tudyk's
A little bit.
Weselton.
Weaselton. Oh, that's a different one.
Yeah,
Weselton. Yeah, he plays so many different characters. Anyway.
Shout out to Alan Tudyk. You have nothing to do with this episode, but I love everything you do.
Throw it in
and
there.
You seem hilarious, so I would love to meet you in real life at some point. Come find me, my friend.
Anyway.
Actually, I'll come find you. You're famous. I'm a nobody.
Anyway.
I'll find a con that you're at and come get an autograph.
Okay. Any last thoughts on the whole Bridgerton? So I'm not sure when the next season will be coming out, but they are planning to do all of the seasons with the siblings. So, and their stories.
I do feel bad that the sister got recast for season 3.
Yeah, that was an interesting. I don't really know what happened.
I understand why they did it, and I think the girl that they casted did an excellent job.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that she was also outside of the box.
Yeah,
and was like, listen,
they are all a little bit.
I like this guy, and I don't care that, and most of the relationships and everything was kind of going, I'm a good match for you. We both have money. We're going to prosper if we get together. So it's more of that with a lot of the couples.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that there were so many of specifically to the Bridgerton kids that were kind of going, well, I don't want that. I want to actually be with somebody I care about. But that probably came from their mom and dad also super caring about each other.
Yeah.
Which you learn throughout the series. There's a lot of other characters that have quite the opposite interactions with their significant others.
Yeah. That is very much just an arranged marriage, and that's that. So, and they don't have a great relationship. So,
True.
Which, I mean, time period, that happened a lot. So,
well, you're my favorite person in the entire world. So.
Why you enjoy it so much too, because you got yourself a love match.
I like that I said that, and she also still talked right over me at the same time.
Sorry. Yeah, I did.
But we said the same thing, but in a different way.
Yeah. Anyway.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love.
Anyway. So, last thoughts?
Also, one of my stems is I just randomly sing.
Yeah, all the time.
Which is...
Chloe does too now.
Yeah, now
so
our middle child is
on.
a musical theater machine.
Yeah.
So my thoughts of Bridgerton is I'm sad that it's over.
Now we have to find a different series to watch, which I don't know. What should we watch next? If you guys have any suggestions, let us know.
For
honestly.
Sure. We've watched so many things though. So yeah,
kind of our downtime to watch stuff together. So.
For sure. And if you've made it this far, we haven't even talked about it, but feel free to go to any of our social medias. We are on all of them. It's either Happily After Laughter Podcast. Did that come out right?
No, not at all.
My mouth is really dry. My ADHD medication makes it. Here, you
go find us on all our social medias.
You talk about those. Yes, why I take a break.
We've got Happily Ever Laughter Podcasts, pretty much on all of the major ones. So you look us up there. I think I had to do something different. We joined Blue Sky, so that's a new one.
Blue Sky, it's at Ever Laughter Podcast.
At Ever Laughter Pod, I believe.
Something like that.
Something like that.
It'll be in the show notes. We'll put it on our social medias. But yeah, any of your favorite socials, we're probably on as well. We're having a super fun time. Feel free to rate and review our show on whatever platform you're listening to, Spotify, Apple Music. That will help us get out to more people.
For sure.
And we can do some more Bridgerton episodes.
When it comes
we just become
again.
a whole Bridgerton podcast.
We go in depth. I'm sure there are those out there.
There probably are.
I know. I like doing the one-off episodes here and there for different things. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll mix some of those in going forward. So,
but yeah, I'm excited for the next season. I'm curious to see who the new love interest would be. I would assume that they're going to move on from Colin and Penelope at this point.
Yeah, I think it'll be
Every
Benedict
season,
this coming season. I think is the chatter.
You think so? The youngest brother?
Well, no, he's actually the second.
Oh,
oldest.
Benedict, artist.
Yeah, the artist.
I like him a lot too. I like him a lot as a character.
I like because he's the jest. Like he'll make fun of stuff pretty quick
But he's also very genuine, and you can tell that he's like, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you.
I'm there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the dynamic that all of the Bridgerton family has between each other. So I always find that fun. I'm curious to see, because I know that Eloise is destined for bigger and greater things. I feel
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of just being, she's
and I don't know where to go from here. I haven't read any of the books or anything either. So I've been curious about it, but it's one of those things that's like, do I want to get into that kind of a series of reading? We'll see.
But is she also, another spoiler, isn't she also going to India?
No,
with
she
them?
went to Scotland with her sister who got married.
That was it. She went with one of the siblings.
Yep.
So there might be some of that, though, too,
Who
where it
knows?
shows her out and about, oh,
Uh-oh.
you love you some...
I do. If they
Outlander?
do the last...
Is Outlander, is that what it's called?
Yes. I got out of that one a little bit.
Which is
It was
also
weird.
another show with a lot of sex and drama
There was a
and
lot.
time travel.
I should have expected that.
A period piece that's both
I
in the
get into
future
some of this
and
stuff
present.
Because I like period
past.
pieces. I like period pieces because I like history and I like learning about stuff like that. That was one that I went in cold turkey, not expecting to be the romance type show that it is for some reason.
Yeah.
Quite the shock. Yeah. So anyway.
But I think that will be exciting because you and me both have a love for the Scottish dialect.
Yeah.
And
so
so
we'll
I
see.
think if she
I don't
can
know
find...
if they will, though. Everybody will probably still have an English accent because it's dumb
That might
like
be
that.
true. Because the brother in the show they came from Germany, right? And he still had the thickest
English
British
accent
English,
or whatever it
but
was. Yeah.
it might have been that way back in the past.
Who
I don't know.
knows?
Because England really just kind of...
It was the empire back then. So
took over everything at that point.
And that's kind of that time period, the Victorian era, Regency era was the huge like colonization kind of era. So yeah, everybody was English no matter where they were kind of thing.
But if there are any other guys that are watching or girls or whoever, honestly.
If your significant other's trying
any
to get you to
non-binary
watch
people that are reserved and kind of going, hey, I don't know if I want to watch that, I would say just give it a shot, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big period piece fan, but
or
I did
you were like,
thoroughly...
this is going to be dumb because it's a girly kind of very obvious romance type show. And you were like, I don't know if I'll like that or not.
Maybe.
Yeah. But there's more to it than meets the eye, I guess. Let's put it that way.
Some of those things don't bother me either. I think it was just that, and it was the hype, and I was already behind the zeitgeist at this point. Throwing that word back in. Look it up if you don't know what it means, because it's exciting.
Anyway.
So that was our Bridgerton episode. We're really excited for the last one. Like we said, go find our stuff, rate and review, find our social medias. Let us know if there's any other television series
that maybe we should watch.
Yeah, that we should watch or review.
Movie or anything like that.
For sure.
I might even get into books. We should start reading again.
There you go.
You have a whole pile of books next to your bedside
I did.
that we should get into.
There was a time when we started getting back into books, and I bought probably 5 horror books.
But there is one that I might be interested in reading as well. So
because
maybe
when we got
can do
in
a book club too.
Yeah, when we got into the occult, all of my books that I just bought are about ghosts or witches or some haunted things. Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. Anyway.
So anyway,
yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
I will put this outro music on. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you next time on the Happily Ever Laughter podcast. Bye, guys. Dancing.